In this video, I'll demonstrate how to dump and crack NTLM hashes using CrackMapExec. So in order to dump and crack hashes, you need access to the hashes. Then the actual cracking of the hash, if it is vulnerable, is usually accomplished using some cracking tool, such as Hashcat, John the Ripper, Hydra, Medusa, etc., some of which we are getting to during this course. We'll start with the assumption here that we have access to a compromised account. In order to enumerate the hashes, we need to breach one computer to start with. From there, if we can escalate our privileges, sometimes finding other high-value accounts, we can then move laterally through the network or intranet. The first step with CrackMapExec is to choose the protocol. This will be system-dependent, based on the computer or network that you're pentesting on. So let's have a look and see what CrackMapExec gives us. So CrackMapExec-H. So this is the help. It'll give some information. What we're concerned about here are the available protocols. So the available protocols here are RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol, WinRM, LDAP, Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, SSH, MS SQL, so this is Microsoft SQL Server, SMB, and FTP. In this case, I'd like to demonstrate the SMB option. But I don't want to run it against the computer on the network, which doesn't have SMB. It's not something we're going to run against every system. A quick confirmation is always advised first. So for this purpose, I use Nmap. So I want to make sure that the traffic will be accepted, the traffic that CrackMapExec sends, so the packets or functions that it tries to replicate, that they'll be received by destination computer. So in this case, we'll do sudo nmap -s uppercase ut -p uppercase u :137, comma t uppercase t 139, comma uppercase t 445. So these are the three ports, 2 TCP ports and 1 UDP port. That's why we're using nmap with -sut for UDP and TCP. So these are the ports associated with SMB. And at the moment, the computer that we're testing against on my network, which will be different wherever you're running this from, is 192.168.2.182. Now, if I wanted to test the entire network, all the computers on my network in the certain range, in the 192.168.2 range, so I could do .0/24, and that will look throughout the 255 possibilities to see which ones might be running or most likely running SMB because of the port. But at the moment, I'm certain it's on port 182 because that's how I've set it up this time. And what I'm looking for is exactly what I'm seeing here. The results of the scan shows the port and the protocol 139/TCP. It shows that it's open. 445, which is the important one, is also open. And 137, the UDP port, is also open. So these three ports being open indicate that it's 99% sure that SMB is running. Now our first CrackMapExec command, CrackMapExec SMB -u user, in this case is the name of the user account on that computer, -p, and in single quotes, password 123. I've set it up with a terrible password, which helps in demonstrating some of these commands so that we can show what it looks like when a bad password is used and it is vulnerable. So in this case, we're looking for the command --shares along with CrackMapExec against SMB, against the computer on the network 192.168.2.182. So here it shows the enumerated shares based on this user, but it doesn't show exactly what we want. It doesn't show that it is vulnerable, at least not in this sense. CrackMapExec, we'll run it again, SMB-u administrator. So I've also set up an administrator account on that computer, -p with the same password, which is a terrible idea in practice, but obviously a helpful idea when demonstrating these pen testing tools. 192.168.2.182. So the same computer. And here, now we see what we're looking for. So there's a line. It has the computer name, /administrator, password 123. And then highlighted in orange and in parentheses it has pwned, PWN3D exclamation mark. So we know we have access, and we know this account has given us administrative access to this computer. Obviously, it's an administrator, but a misconfigured user account could end up with the same results. So the first step is always to run shares. That'll give us some information about what's being shared. And if the account is vulnerable, it'll show that it's owned. Now we'll run CrackMapExec, SMB-U, administrator, -P, and then we'll put in the password, and --sessions. So the second step is to run the sessions command, 192.168.2.182 against the same computer on my network. So it doesn't show any extra information with the enumerated sessions, but it does show I still have access. So at this point, it hasn't given us a whole lot. Now I'd like to rerun this command, this session commands, but I'm going to change the user from administrator to user to see if I get any extra information, and run it against the user account and not the administrator account. So I haven't gotten any information on enumerated sessions. So there's nothing open. So these are the active sessions we're looking for, and we don't see anything yet. So one of the things that we can do is that if we have a high value account, something with administrative or some type of elevated privileges, we can actually run some remote commands. So another thing we can do is run CrackMapExec with SMB-U, and I'll stick with administrator because this will give us some information, some extra information, because the administrator account has more access. So we'll use get-service. So this is the command we're going to run, and we'll run it against our 192.168.2.182. And this is what we'd like to see. This script contains malicious content and has been blocked by your antivirus software. So this is very good. This is what we want to see. So when the antivirus software is running, it blocks us from access. Now, if we'd like to see what full owning of the computer is, we can turn off the antivirus software, which I don't recommend ever doing. But at this point, we see that there is some mitigations against these scripts. Another thing we can do is, if there's antivirus software running, we can use CrackMapExec, SMB, and we'll put in the same administrative user, administrator, -P, password 123, and -M, and we'll use enum_AV products. So this is a built-in script we can use to run it against the same computer. And this tells us that it does have antivirus software, it's running Windows Defender, and that it is running, and it tells us what it's running from, and gives us a bit of information. So we know that there is antivirus running, and it's good to see, because if we don't see this information, if it doesn't show any virus, then there's another vulnerability which we should document. So at this point, because we know we have full access, let's try to dump some hashes. So CrackMapExec, SMB-U, administrator, -P, password 123, --SAM. So we're trying to dump the SAM hashes, 192.168.2.182. And it does give us the hashes. So we have the administrator hashes, guest, default account, WDAG utility account, and user. So the user and the administrator are the ones that I've shown in this video. And you can look at the hashes. So it's interesting that the hashes are identical. So when it shows identical hashes throughout our results, if you see this, there's a very good chance, or almost a 100% chance, that the same password is used for administrator and user, which is not a good sign. So it's another thing you can look at here. And if you're using hash cracking tools like Hashcat, you can even use these hashes and attempt to crack them for if they're using poor passwords. Now I'll show you one more command, CrackMapExec. And this time I'm going to use LDAP. So I'm not going to use SMB. I'm going to try LDAP against that same system. So the lightweight directory access protocol, put in the same information, -U administrator, -P password 123, --Kerberos. Let's see if it's vulnerable to Kerberosing. So we'll try and dump the Kerberos hashes 192.168.2.182. And we're not getting anything. So there's probably not a service running that is using Kerberos authentication, or at least not an LDAP service. So we don't get anything. And you can do the same, and you could check to see if it's running Microsoft SQL Server. You can use the MS SQL command under CrackMapExec. But if you don't get this far, if you don't have an administrative account or it doesn't have a vulnerable account, you won't get the message showing that it has been owned, and you won't be able to dump the hashes, which is a good sign. If you're pen testing, you want to make sure that you can't get in this far, that you can't dump this information from external sources. If there's a non-administrative account, which lets you get in and dump all this information, including the administrative hashes, then its access privileges are probably set too high. And that concludes this demonstration of cracking NTLM hashes using CrackMapExec.